Cool. Okay. While the PC, I mean the virtual machine that I created, boots up, couple of words. This is gonna be the first video. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my, I guess, series of videos where I build my startup from scratch. Um I have no idea how this is gonna turn out, how long I'm gonna be doing this for. I hope it will be successful. Not necessarily the startup, but whatever this is that I'm doing. So successful in that it will bring good to me, to people, in terms of growth, knowledge, progression in life. And if a startup comes out of this, and I do eventually have a company, like create a company that employs people and functions properly, then that will be a nice plus. انا مش عارف انا هتكلم عربي ولا انجليزي. اغلبية الستريمز هيتحدد الكلام ده او الاختيار ده بناء على الناس اللي هتتابع. انا عارف ان انا كاتب كل حاجة بالانجليزي اسهل عليا، لكن انا بتكلم عربي، واحب برضو ان انا ايه لو في ناس تتكلم عربي عايزة تستفيد او تتابع الرحلة دي، احب ان انا ارحب بيهم، اتكلم معاهم، ويكونوا جزء من الايه من التجربة يعني. طيب I guess that does it for the intro. انا كاتب يعني في التاجز العربية in case in somebody wishes to speak in Arabic. I'll be happy to talk in Arabic as well. I think that should do it for the intro. مش عايز صراحة أدي intro عن مين أنا وإيه a lot of things to discuss. I think it's just best to get right to it. أول حاجة let me check how to resize this. How to resize this VM so that it's not كده إيه a ridiculous square. Okay. 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 لازم أعمل restart. I have to reboot. gonna take its sweet time. It's fine. Lovely. Type. I'm starting with a VM for a very specific reason, which is that I would like to share my screen, show you everything that I do. I'll be setting up everything on the stream, including the environment I'm gonna work in, the tools I use, all the files I use, everything. I want this يعني to be as well documented as possible, and I thought a VM would be the best way to do this. أول حاجة ننزل كروم ده كده كده. We have to get Chrome first thing. For this reason. Good lord. Exactly. يعني Microsoft services try to get in your way as much as possible. Not get out of your way, which should be the thing to do يعني. As service provider, you should just give the service. Get out of the way. Okay. Installing Chrome. Not that Chrome is much better. I mean, Chrome is still bad, but it's better than Microsoft tools. I imagine this stream is gonna be dedicated to setting up the environment and coming up with a plan, schedule, do a bunch of research. Probably, if you're watching this, you're gonna be curious what idea there is. I mean, startup, what kind of startup, right? That's the first question one has. And I'll be sharing that soon, but let's just start with setting up the environment. I need to okay, I'm gonna just black out the screen for a moment while I input my email address. I guess you can still hear me. This should be fine. I do need to log into my Google account to access the AI tools I signed up for. Many things I need to access for this initiative. And so this is taking longer than usual. And so I'll need to sign in. Just give me a moment, bear with me. You know how it is when you try to sign into Google. It tries to double and triple check that you are the real owner of the account. So that's fine. Okay. And then once you actually do sign in, it floods you with messages about whether or not this was your real account. Okay. Cool. So I suppose now we're good to go. The best way I think to develop anything in code is to use, the best, let's say, code editing or IDE is Visual Basic. I don't personally like it. I've always been a Sublime kind of guy. but since this is supposed to be following best practice, I'm gonna use Visual Studio Code. So I guess we can let's download that first. We're gonna need Python, we're gonna need Visual Studio Code, we might need Claude Code later. I'm gonna of course need Claude AI. I'm gonna be using it as the main AI tool for my project. As a brief introduction to me, I studied CS, so I kind of know my ways around the things I'm talking about. However, I did specialize in AI, so the idea that I have is for an app, a service providing app, let's say. And by service, I mean for the. I'm sure why this is taking too long. For the regular person, so a service like cleaning your car or something like that. So services of this type. And for this, you kind of need no AI. So there will be little overlap between what I know and what I'm gonna be doing. And I mean, I'm just gonna say it outright. This was not gonna be possible, and I was never gonna approach this idea without having to learn all of these things. If it were not for AI and Claude AI specifically, because even if I hadn't studied CS, I could have probably done it. Of course, hoping inshallah we are able to do it. But I'm confident in Claude's capacity of carrying us through this. Okay, we're gonna need to add it to the path. I guess a desktop icon won't hurt. And here's VS Code. Okay. In the meantime, I could probably set up Python. Which version is a good question. Because this is gonna affect how much the AI knows about these things. If you go with a with a very recent version, you're gonna struggle. But I guess for the case, for the sake of the longevity of this project, it's best to use the most up-to-date and stable version. So these are so let me use 3.1 so 3.13.14. Okay, I am using Windows of course for this. I could have used Linux, but I guess setting things up on Linux is a bit harder and I don't really like it. Okay, VS Code is good to go. I'm not that proficient with Linux as well, I should say. So we're doing things in Windows. Python, maybe not the only programming language. In fact, maybe I'll not be using it too much. So the design of the project is going to be determined by my conversation with Claude, which is going to start soon. But realistically, you want to have, if you're going to create an app, you want it to be on iOS and Android. These are the main two. You don't have to even have a browser version, although that helps. So maybe that's something we can do down the line. But in the meantime, this is gonna be just for iOS and Android. Okay. We're gonna have to set things up in VS Code in a moment, but let me just clean up my machine, get to Claude, and we can start. Okay. Search, we don't need it. We don't need that. Chrome needs to be pinned. Now, what is that? Oh god. Okay, I don't know what they call this, but I'll just turn everything off. They really make it as hard as possible to. I don't know what that thing is, and I don't know how to remove it. Let's see if we can remove it by opening it up. Yes, that's Windows for you. Huh. I just noticed that the stream is a bit cropped, isn't it? Why? That's weird. Wait, let me try and fix this. It's good that I noticed this now. Okay. Oh, I have to. Okay, I see. So now, since I scaled up the VM, okay. I think it's fine now. So, what I was trying to remove was this thing, bottom right. Is there any way I can just remove this thing? Probably not. Oh, it's gone. Okay. Thank God. Now allow me to sign into Claude. I'm gonna black the screen out for a moment. I mean, I don't imagine I'm gonna be able to like keep my email hidden, and that's fine. Email is actually just fine. Okay, there you go. But I'm gonna at least try. Okay, let's. It's how did we appearance? Thank you. Lovely. Now I think the best thing to do is to set up a project. On Claude, and you can do this just by a new project. And naming it. Okay. So the thing is, we need to set up this project such that Claude is always familiar with what we're gonna be doing, and I think the best thing to do is to just plug in some context. So the way to do this is we just give it a title here. Let's actually give it a proper name. Startup. Why is it laggy? It's a bit delayed. I don't like that. Don't know. Okay, startup overview. So that's what I'm gonna be naming it. It has to do with where this is gonna be eventually published, or let's say deployed. So, and this is likely gonna be serving in Arab countries, maybe Egypt, maybe Saudi Arabia, maybe similar. We will see, but it has to be within these countries. Okay, so let me now provide context to Claude and in turn to you guys. Okay. It should be an app providing services to individuals the services should be of the type maybe I should just give examples. Services should include but are not limited to house cleaning, so cleaning in general, I mean, but I should be giving examples here. So not just cleaning, so repair, home utility repair, so things like the fridge, I don't know if that's the way to type it. Yes, I suppose. So refrigerator, washing machine, air conditioner, etc. Installations, doors, I don't know, windows. I guess doors is not the best idea, the best example. So maybe something like okay, let's just leave it at that. I know I can easily give many more examples, but let's just leave it at that. I think it's clear for the sake of the overview. I should give some more detail. So Armut is a similar app in Turkey. Is to essentially make it easier for any person in the area to find high quality service with a middleman أي خدمة without having to go through the process of I guess it's just clear about this. So let's be concise. Goal is to make and with which is very critical, review system for both service providers and clients, or rather, I should say users. Okay, the app is intended to be helped for both. I should be more simple. Developed for both and Android, and should okay, I think that's fine. What other requirements? Alright, I think that's fine. Okay, so I think we are good to go with our first conversation. I'll be asking all of the questions that you guys probably have at this point, but the ones I do have as well, to Claude. So first things first is first question I have in mind is quite generic. How would you go about doing something like this? It's very, very generic. Allows us not to miss something. So let's not get hyper focused, for example, on how to develop it, or what's the best place, or what are the competitors. So these are all things we need to be aware of, but I think the best thing to do is at this point to just provide a very high level question given the project or the startup description. How would you go about creating this? Now I should also provide it some idea that here, because it may get hyper focused on maybe the technical component or the legal or the I don't know, but let's give it some more information that tells it to be as high level as possible. Think all aspects, not just technical, strategic, business, legal, etc. I think maybe we can give it a little higher, since I needed to think quite hard about this. I think also maybe you guys can benefit from a bit of zoom maybe that's enough. Okay. So while it thinks, um, I'll tell you at least a little bit about my expectations here. So the idea is to identify the best frameworks that works for iOS and Android, and this is not going to be cross-platform. So I've seen, and I don't remember its name, but it's some Google service that allows you to build an app, a singular app that works for iOS, Android, and web. I don't like that idea. I don't think people do that, although I'll be confirming that with Claude. I'll try my best to develop two apps. I think iOS and Android are very different systems, and their users generally interact with their apps in a completely different way. And so this should be reflected in the design. It shouldn't just be one app that has a basic cross, I don't know, cross platform design. Okay. So it's gonna be typing a lot of stuff. So let's start. Building something like iKhidma is really 3 startups on top of each other. That's not good news. A two-sided marketplace business, a trust/operations business. Okay, let's break down what it's trying to say. A two-sided marketplace business. Not sure what two-sided here means. A trust/operations business, that's right, and a software product, that's correct. The order you tackle these in matters more than people expect. Most failures in this category come from building the app first and the trust/liquidity problem second. Here's how I'd sequence it. Validate before you build anything. Talk to 30 to 50 potential customers in your target city. How do they currently find a cleaner or an AC repair tech? What do they pay? What goes wrong? Things like no-shows, theft worries, bad quality, price haggling, and so on. Talk to 20 to 30 service providers, independent cleaners, appliance technicians, informal repair shops. Okay, let's do something before I do that. Let me go to Twitch, because I don't really have a tag for this yet. So I might as well. So I need to put something. I'm not sure if IRL is the one. So it's not games. I'm not doing games here. I guess just chatting will work, because it'll attract more people. Just chatting IRL. We're not touching grass. Okay, so the picture for IRL is grass. We're not gonna be touching grass. I mean, not yet, maybe. But today it's just chatting. So allow me to just change that. Okay. I don't know how much that's gonna impact views, but I might as well just put something, you know. Okay, let's continue with the second point. So it says talk to 30 to 50 customers, talk to 20 to 30 service providers, independent cleaners, appliance technicians, informal repair shops. How do they currently get customers? Would they give up a cut of revenue for steady demand? That's a very good question. I have answers for the first one. The cities I mentioned, or the countries I mentioned, Egypt and Saudi Arabia, for example, I think are places where there is clear market gap for this. I've noticed this when I go to Egypt, or when I want a service in Saudi Arabia. I have to rely on channels that are not optimal. So if I want repair for my air conditioner, I have to look on Google Maps and find stores nearby, and I have to look at the ratings. and I still don't know if they're good or bad, and I don't know what's their working hours. I don't know how much they cost. So they may be high quality, but what if they're just too expensive, and I wouldn't want to, you know, work with someone who's gonna give me the service I want but charge me more than I expect. So this is a clear market gap. If all of this is communicated and coordinated within an app for the customer, I think they would much rather prefer this. This also gives them the stability of not having to worry about finding alternatives. So if you work with a cleaner, for example, uh, I should phrase this properly. The cleaner knows, if without, you know, an app like this existing, that they have to that you don't have an alternative. So they're stuck with you as a cleaner. So you may not do that good of a job. This is uh, as op- um, as opposite to them knowing that they were hired through an app. They're gonna be scored after. So some 5-point system may be used, and if they consistently do a bad job, or if a customer is not happy with something that they do, they may as well change their habits and provide better service. So having this middleman that ensures for the customer this service is gonna be good. I mean, otherwise, because this person is high rated, for example, uh, I think that puts pressure on actually both sides. So I mean, the users are also gonna be rated, and if they have a bad rating, we may not provide them with services. And that can happen, of course. Some people mistreat uh, service providers, or uh, I mean, these workers that come and do services for them. So it's gonna be both ways. It's gonna put pressure on people of both sides to behave well and do their best to make actually the service the best experience for both. So the cleaner is gonna clean well. The person who requested the service is gonna be treating them well. Treating them fine. So they don't have to like go an extra mile. Nobody has to go an extra mile, but they just have to be polite. Okay, and polite is standard. I don't think it's an extra mile. So I guess it's clear why this market gap exists. That being said, let's not rule this out. So this is a good idea of asking around, and luckily this does not have to be people in the street, because I have a lot of community in Egypt. I can simply just go about and ask them, and this is something I'm gonna do. Okay, this though I don't have much knowledge about. So how do they currently get customers is a great question. In Egypt, I think it's a lot of word of mouth. People people really rely on word of mouth. So um, this means if you have an issue with your car and you want to trust it with a repair shop or a repairman that knows what they're doing, you ask your friends, and then the service provider in this case knows that this is a referral and will do their best to satisfy that new customer as well, because if they mess up the service for that second guy, they may even lose the original customer. That's one factor of it, but what I'm trying to say is that Egypt works uh, on word of mouth, which is, in my opinion, a very right place for an app like this, where a point system will change this. The second question, but I generally don't know. So how much of it is word of mouth? How much is marketing, digital marketing? How much is it? How much of it is Google Maps? Just their presence on Google Maps with high ratings. This is all. Uh, um, these are all questions that I need to research. Would they give up a cut of revenue for a steady demand? Very good question. and this is gonna be this is gonna play a huge factor in the early days of this startup, where we're gonna, I mean, ideally, so if you're gonna charge people high prices for the service, customers won't be happy and service providers won't be happy, and you'll just end up with no business. So realistically, especially at the beginning, before people really know the value of the service you're providing, you want your cut to be as minimal as possible. So we need to figure out, first of all, how much of the cut are these service providers willing to give up actually. So this is a great question. Narrow your launch scope to one city / district and 1 to 2 service provider service categories. I think that's a great idea. This is what I had in mind. I thought Cairo or Riyadh, and even districts within these. So, for example, not all districts, and I imagine this is similar to any place. So if you're watching this from other cities, say, I don't know, a European city, an African city, an Asian city, an American, Canadian, South American city, likely it has districts where people are much more likely to accept such a service versus others. And this has to, I guess the main factor here is how wealthy the area is. An area that is wealthy requires these services. An area that is not wealthy typically does the services for themselves. In fact, they likely provide the services for the wealthy areas. So being very specific in the cities and districts, I think, is going to be a factor. Yeah. Okay. Let's continue. Not the full catalog from day one, that's for sure. Liquidity. Enough supply meeting enough demand. Fast is a thing that kills or saves marketplaces, and it's much easier to reach in a narrow niche. I agree. Okay. So it's basically just saying ensure that there is enough supply and demand in the place where you're gonna launch this service. Look closely at Armos model and similar plays. Urban Company in India, helping in Europe, TaskRabbit / Thumbtack. So I don't know any of these, in fact. This is lovely because it gives me things to compare my product to, for what worked and what they had to change. Beautiful. Okay, what's the business model? It says business model and unit economics. Decide these early because they shape your legal structure and tech. Take rate. Most commonly a commission per completed job, 10 to 20%. Okay, so this is what you take per transaction. Most commonly a commission per completed job, 10 to 20%, sometimes combined with a pay per lead fee model. Provider pays to get matched, win or lose. Okay. Yeah, so this is something you'll find in Upwork, for example, or freelancing sites where they give you some token system with which you find leads. So you can't just go and find leads. So this has to be very, very carefully designed. And I agree that these have to be designed early. Commission only is simpler to trust, build with providers early on. Okay, who holds the money? If you collect payment and pay out providers, you're running an escrow / payments flow. This has real legal weight. That's correct. So I'm actually gonna try and avoid this, because this complicates things much more than you think. Of course, it's more profitable to control the entire flow, And I say, of course, for one reason. Um, People know that this is more expensive than if you were to not use the app. Meaning, if you have a cleaner or if you know a cleaner uh, and you pay them directly, you both save by not using the app. Um, an escrow system ensures that the app remains a middleman. So this increases revenue, but is much, much harder to maintain. And I don't think it's worth it, honestly. The simple reason is this: your service should, let me phrase this properly. Yeah, so there should be enough incentive using your service that hiring the same cleaner again should go through the app. So what that means is you as a user would much rather benefit from keeping us as a middleman, ensuring quality, um, than if you were to just find the person through the app and then forget about the app. Okay? And to achieve this, it's not so simple. It's not easy. It may not even be possible. But regardless, for now, I imagine I want to avoid having an escrow/payments flow. Unit economics to model from day one. Average job value, take rate, cost to acquire a customer, cost to acquire/onboard a provider, repeat rate. Yes, these are all good questions. A services marketplace lives or dies on repeat usage, not first drops, that's for sure. So you don't want a customer who will just download the app, use it once and never use it again. Okay, legal and regulatory foundations. This is the part founders most often underweight, and it's heavily country specific. Tell me your target country and I go much deeper, and I can go much deeper. All differ a lot here. At minimum, you'll need to work through. Okay, so let's go through the minimum and then provide the countries which I mentioned, so that we learn more. Company formation and licensing. Registering as a marketplace/service aggregator business, which in some jurisdictions requires specific commercial license distinct from a generic tech company. Okay, so you will likely not be a tech company. You want a commercial license that allows you to put up a marketplace. Worker classification. This is the single biggest legal risk in the business model. Are providers independent contractors or effectively employees? So ultimately they're gonna have to be independent contractors. I imagine this has to be the best way. Let's continue. Many countries have strict tests here, and misclassification can trigger back taxes, benefits liability, and fines. Get this reviewed by a local labor lawyer before scaling. Cool. So this should actually, I mean, let me be clear. All of these service providing apps that have launched in the past, let's say 10, 15 years, think Uber and food delivery systems like Talabat, very popular in the Middle East. In Saudi Arabia, you have Hunger Station, you have Kita. Egypt has a couple other, maybe one more. But regardless, of course, Uber Eats. As far as I know, the riders, the people who deliver the food, are not official employees. They are users, just as you are a user. But their role in the usage is different. Okay? Now, I understand that it may look like employment, but the main difference is here there is no obligation. This person, I mean, as far as I know, can just go on vacation for forever. So they may just quit on the spot. They don't have to notify me. They don't have to do anything of the such. I'm talking if you're Uber and a rider wants to take a vacation. Essentially, you do not have to obligate them to work. You cannot obligate them to work. Actually, this is what I'm trying to say. So in this sense, they are not really employees. They're just doing something to get something out of it, even if that thing looks like a job. And this is what we're gonna work towards. So I don't want these people, service providers, to be employees. It's gonna, for a very simple reason, it's just gonna complicate things enormously. An employee versus a user is a completely different story. Trade licensing. Electricians, AC technicians, and similar trades may legally require certification in your country. You may need to verify and store proof of licensure for certain categories. That's right. If you hold customer funds before paying out providers, you may need a licensed payment processor or even a money transmission / e-money license, depending on jurisdiction. Using a regulated payment processor, Stripe or a regional equivalent, as the actual fund holder is usually the simplest path to avoid becoming a regulated financial entity yourself. Okay. You'll be collecting home addresses, location, payment info, and ID documents for verification. Yeah, so you're gonna need very well designed data storage and data processes for consent, blah blah blah. Okay. Clear cancellation / refund policies, acquire accurate advertising, and a defined dispute process are often legally required, not just good practice. Yes. So this should be part of the app. Insurance, general liability coverage for damage / injury during a job, and the decision on whether providers must carry their own insurance, whether the platform offers a damage guarantee fund, or whether the platform offers a damage guarantee fund. Tax, VAT / sales tax handling. Okay, on commissions and tax reporting obligations to our providers. Many countries require platforms to report provider income above a threshold. Interesting. Have a lawyer draft your terms of service, privacy policy, and provider agreement. Don't template these. The provider agreement especially needs to be clearly define the contractor relationship. Okay. Trust, safety, and quality control. This is the product more than the app is. Concretely, vetting, ID verification, background checks where legally permitted, license / certification checks for trades, and ideally an in-person or video interview before a provider goes live. That's right. So I imagine ID, a check of so a criminal record or similar documents that prove the similar documents that prove the quality of the person, that this is safe. Reviews, two-sided. Customers rate providers, providers rate customers too. This matters for filtering bad customers, that's for sure. With basic fraud detection, no review without a completed paid job. Yeah, so you cannot allow someone to have reviews that are not real. Disputes and guarantees, a clear process for the job was bad. Okay, or something got damaged, ideally backed by a small guarantee fund or insurance product. This is often what gets you word of mouth trust faster than marketing ever will. Okay, so something that the customers can trust. If you hire a cleaner and they come for 3, 5, I don't know, 6 hours, and their cleaning is poor. You end up with a house that is maybe 20% clean, 30% clean in terms of how you define clean. So the job was bad. So what do you do? How do you compensate this customer? Yes. Okay, here's how this typically plays out in sequence. Most marketplace startups skip straight to scale and pay for it later. Yeah, so we have to... Why is this clickable? Validate launch. One city, narrow scope. Yes, let's focus on cleaning. I think cleaning is very easy to advertise and is in demand, so this is important. Reach liquidity, automate, build trust, and then scale up. So different cities now, different countries. I mean, you're talking years down the line for sure. Roughly, phase one is about proving the loop works at all, weeks to a few months, yeah. Phase 2 is about making it work reliably without you personally fixing every job by hand, several months. Phase 3 is replication once you have a playbook. Okay, this is 4, this is trust, safety, and quality control. Product and technical build. Cross-platform first. React Native or Flutter gets you iOS plus Android from one code base with a small team. Yeah. So this is it. So it's prioritizing cross-platform. I don't like that, but we're gonna be discussing it. MVP should be ops heavy, not algorithm heavy. Many successful marketplaces, Thumbstack, early Instacart, I don't know either of these, started by manually matching jobs behind a simple app rather than building a smart matching engine first. Don't over-invest in automation before you know what a good match even looks like. I guess that's fair. Core feature set for V1. Customer request flow, provider profile, availability, plus custom provider profile plus availability, in-app chat or call masking, payment plus escrow, two-sided ratings, push notifications, and an admin dashboard your ops team can use to manually assign / monitor jobs. Yeah, so these are all important. Build versus buy. Use a managed backend, Firebase, Supabase, and a regulated payment processor rather than building these from scratch. Speed matters more than control at this stage. Go to market, solving the cold start. Boost, okay. Bootstrap supply first. Recruit providers manually. Door-to-door partnerships with existing cleaning companies or appliance repair shops. Local trade associations, often with reduced / zero commission for early cohorts. Yes. So you want it at the beginning to be as easy as possible to get on board for a provider. Concentrate marketing in a small geographic radius until you hit local liquidity. Enough providers that a customer request gets filled fast. Yes. Broad / diffuse launches usually fail to reach liquidity anywhere. Demand side channels that tend to work for home services. Local Facebook / community groups, partnerships with property managers, real estate agents, referral incentives, and word of mouth from a great first experience, which is why trust safety isn't optional. It's your growth engine. Okay. So to solve the cold start problem, you need demand side channels that tend to work for home services. Okay. Operations. A real local ops team, even 1 to 2 people initially to onboard and vet providers, jump into customer issues and manually patch matching gaps the app can't yet solve. Build in spot checks / mystery shopper style quality audits early. Quality problems compound fast in businesses, and are far cheaper to catch early than after a bad review spiral. Yeah, okay, so you're gonna have to set up for your actual operations check-ins. So you wanna jump in and see how everything is going with a given provider. Team and funding. Minimum founding team, someone who can build / manage the product, you or a technical co-founder. So this is gonna be me. I mean, the reason of doing this is not because I want to be on the sides or I have a good idea. I think I can build most of it. That's the main reason. Someone running local ops. Okay, so this is something that I don't have, especially for Egypt. I live in Saudi Arabia, and so it's not very easy for me to get on the ground in Egypt. So this is going to be someone we need. Someone running local ops and provider relationships, and someone owning growth / marketing. Type funding path, bootstrap through validation and MVP. Prove liquidity and repeat usage in one city, then raise. Okay, local angel investors, accelerators or seed funds. Many markets in the MENA region now have these. So it's saying you have to prove it once to show some good portfolio, and then you go around finding funding. How much funding we're gonna need is a good question. We're gonna need probably funding at some point, but I want to keep it at a minimum. One reason for that is that, again, I can build it all myself, and whoever is on ground, I'm willing to. So this is likely not gonna be an employee. So it's gonna be one. So whoever is on the ground in Egypt has to be a partner, not just an employee. Investors will want to see real liquidity and unit economics, not just an app, for sure. So if you want to gain investment, you need to show that your idea works, not just that it exists. Key risks to watch. Cold start / liquidity failure, the most common cause of death for this business model. Okay, so really the biggest issue we would face is not getting off the ground. So for this to launch, we're gonna have to invest a lot of time and effort, and in turn also money, in getting providers on board and connecting them with shops. Disintermediation. Customers and providers exchanging contact info. Okay, so this is what I was referring to. Customers and providers exchanging contact info and going around the platform after the job. Yep, so they essentially bypass you for the next job. Your commission and trust features need to offer enough ongoing value, insurance, support, repeat booking convenience, that staying on platform is worth it. Perfect. So this is what I am looking for. If it's easier for the customer, or if it's better, not easier, for the customer to essentially bypass you altogether for the next job, then your service wasn't good enough. This is gonna happen anyway, so service is never gonna be good enough that all customers will prefer to go through the app. But what I'm saying is, it's ideally the service should incentivize enough people to keep repeating jobs. Okay. Regulatory risk. So this is the second thing. Okay, so first is getting off the ground. Second is making sure it's a good service. Customers want to return to it. Regulatory risk, especially worker classification and licensing. This can sneak up. This can sneak up on you after you've scaled. Trust incidents. One bad theft / damage story can set back growth months in a trust dependent category. Yes. Think Uber. If Uber was just starting out, I'm gonna give you like the worst case scenario. Uber is starting out in a city, and one of the drivers, sorry, got into an altercation with the customer where they were wrong, so the driver is wrong, and it led to the death of the customer. So this is as bad as it can get. But this is gonna make news. This is gonna make the headlines for the next few days, maybe weeks. And it just screws everything up for you. So trust has to be handled very, very well. This is the general playbook. Okay. I think it's good at this point to provide the second prompt, which is about what we wish to do. So the essentially the caveats, things it was not sure about, or the things that it proposed that I wasn't very happy with. No. So okay. So this is what happens. All right. When you click this, it just types in a prompt for you. That's not what I want to do. One second. Okay. Okay. You want to mention the work classification? Yes. Okay. We have a bunch of viewers. I'm not sure who they are, but welcome. Okay. Nothing else I have a comment here on. I think we should mention the cross-platform thing. For the product. Or separate. either system, which is more healthy. Again, I wouldn't be asking this question if AI wasn't around, because definitely if I was developing this myself, I would much rather have something cross-platform so that I don't have to learn Android app development, iOS app development, and potentially later on also web. So with AI, I have this, let's say, flexibility or luxury in the long run. Okay. So if you're watching, I would like to get to get your opinion on what I'm doing. So any feedback is more than welcome. This is still day one, you know. So anything is subject to change. Not anything, but most things. Okay, so let's go on with these for now. Let's give me your okay. Okay. So I've just given it some more information. Okay. Yeah, so again, I don't know much about app development. I don't know anything, in fact, about app development, I should say. I do write code, I program, but mainly AI. So, yeah, development of apps, web development, anything of the sort is new to me. But I mean, I can't imagine it being too hard, or at least not for this app. So I'm not gonna be building some kind of crazy game or some crazy complex system. I imagine this is a very simple app. Okay. So it's just gonna go through it and provide some more comments. Taking too long here. I think it should be done soon. Um, if you're watching, I would like to get your feedback. So chat something. Let's talk. So I'm not alone in here. We had a few viewers here, but yeah, just people come in and leave. I don't think it's so interesting as of now to look at this conversation with Claude. But I think as we start to develop it um, and start to launch it, I think it's going to be much more interesting. Okay. Wow, okay. So I didn't know this. The Egyptian regulatory picture has actually shifted a lot very recently. So this is so this is worth getting current information on rather than relying on older assumptions. Company setup. You'll register with Gafi. general authority for investment and free zones under the company's law. Your commercial registration needs to be explicitly include e-commerce/digital service activity. Egypt doesn't have a separate e-commerce license. It's folded into your standard registration. Okay. Companies engaged in online retail or service provision must include e-commerce or digital activities in their commercial registration. And VAT registration becomes mandatory once annual turnover exceeds 500,000 Egyptian pounds. Okay. Egypt also runs a mandatory electronic invoicing system that registered businesses, including online sellers must comply with. Interesting, very interesting. Okay. Data protection is the thing to get ahead of right now. This isn't theoretical. Egypt just finished operationalizing its data protection law. The executive regulations to the Personal Data Protection Law number 151/2020 were issued in November 2025, detailing operational rules for consent. One second. Um, I may go for a third one. Alhamdulillah. Okay. So there's a new law, essentially, effective November 2025, detailing operational rules for consent, licensing, record keeping, breach notification, cross-border data transfers, and special categories of data. Wow, fascinating. I mean, this makes it difficult to. One second, maybe I should. Okay. So this makes it difficult. I mean, this is to keep in mind if you want to use a cloud service provider for the application. This may be very tricky because to comply with this law, we cannot, for example, use. Um, I'm not sure if there is a Google zone in Egypt. I should just check it out right now. Let's do it. Okay, so as I thought, Google doesn't really have a region or zone in Egypt, and this is gonna be an issue. It's gonna be a big issue if we want to use Google as the service provider. Fascinating. Okay. Um, Good to keep in mind. Organizations have a 1-year grace period with full enforcement expected by November 2026. Okay. Very interesting stuff. And licenses may be required for activities like operating as a data controller, processing sensitive personal data, or transferring data outside Egypt. iKhidma will be collecting home addresses, phone numbers, IDs, blah blah blah. Of course, exactly the kind of data this law is built around. Worth building compliance in from day one rather than retrofitting it. You're right. Okay, payments confirms your instinct. More below. Egypt Central Bank just tightened this considerably. The Central Bank of Egypt issued a new licensing framework in 2025 for payment system operators and electronic payment service providers under law number 194 of 2020, with capital requirements that differ by category, a mandatory 3-year strategic business plan, and now required unconditional financial guarantee. Wow. If Akhidma ever held or routed customer funds itself, this is the regime it would fall into. It's a heavy lift for a startup. Okay. Worth knowing, Egypt has direct precedent for regulating platform-based services, even when workers are contractors. And it got more invasive over time, not less. The original 2018 ride-hailing law was followed by a tighter 2019 decree requiring data retention on rides for 6 months, shareable with the Ministry of Transport and Social Security insurance payments, despite drivers being independent contractors, plus monthly drug and alcohol testing of a sample of drivers, mandatory ethical vetting and training, and suspension after repeated complaints. Home services or providers enter someone's house, often unsupervised, plausibly draws more government and public scrutiny than rides did, of course, not less, if the category grows. I'd plan for the possibility of a sector-specific decree eventually, even though none exists for home services yet. So this isn't something essentially we have to, center all of our design around, but it's something to keep in mind. On contractor classification, your instinct is the right default and matches how ride-hailing and delivery operate in Egypt. 2 things to flag. The ground just shifted under this. Egypt's new labor law 14 of 2025 expands the definition of employment relationships to explicitly include new work patterns like remote work, part-time work, and flexible arrangements, and for the first time, platform/gig work is named in Egyptian labor legislation. So this is, I guess, what we're doing. But the law's provisions on platform-based work are extremely brief and depend entirely on executive regulations that haven't been issued yet, leaving a legislative vacuum where workers remain classified as independent contractors without formal contractors or social insurance. As formal contracts or social insurance, yes. Translation, right now there is no legal obstacle to your contractor model, but there's also no settled rule book. That's right. Those executive regulations could land at any point and reshape what's required. Worth having an Egyptian labor lawyer on retainer to flag this rather than discover it after the fact. Classification risk is about substance, not the label. Courts look at control. Can providers set their own prices, decline jobs freely, work for competitors, use their own tools, set their own schedule? The more iKhidma dictates pricing, mandates exclusivity, or controls how a job gets done, the weaker the contractor argument gets, regardless of what the contract says. Yeah. So the more I restrict the service provider, the more it looks like employment. Official, I mean employment. On skipping escrow and leading with trust, I like the legal logic here a lot. It sidesteps the Central Bank of Egypt's payment licensing regime entirely, which per above just got materially harder. But I'd separate 2 things you may be bundling together. which are: don't build payment escrow infrastructure, agreed, strongly. Building your own funds holding system would pull you into CBE PSP. Payment licensing, I don't know, what is it called? I don't know. Building your own funds holding system will pull you into CBSP PSP's licensing for no good reason. Yes. Don't process payment at all. Rely purely on trust. This creates a real business problem with naming. If money never touches the platform, how do you collect your commission? Yes. Providers can simply underreport completed jobs. This is the classic disintermediation risk from my earlier answer, just arriving earlier than expected. So my idea was that a successful job would be flagged in the app as a successful job, and if successful, with the specified prices and the job, details agreed on by both parties before it commences, then the contract with the service provider should mean that they have to pay us for that job. So maybe monthly they would send us all of the money owed from the commission of the jobs they've done throughout the month, for example. So this is an idea, but this is very, very important, of course. The model most platforms in this position actually use threads the needle. Stay out of the regulated payment business. Don't go fully off platform either. Route payment through an existing licensed Egyptian payment aggregator, Paymob Fawry, that already holds the SBE license and supports split payments. Money flows from customer to the provider. The aggregator automatically carves out your commission. And iKhidma never holds a balance or needs its own license. Okay, maybe that's a better idea. This also solves a safety problem cash only creates. Providers and customers handling cash in someone's home is itself a trust risk, not a trust solution. Reviews, vetting, and guarantees should absolutely be your trust story, but pairing with the cashless settlement tends to build more trust, not less, while protecting your revenue. Okay, cool. On cross-platform versus separate apps. Okay, this is the part I was looking forward to the most. Two different questions are bundled in this one. Worth untangling. iOS versus Android built cross-platform. React Native or Flutter, one code base. Both platforms. At pre-product market fit stage, you don't yet know which features matter, and you want to iterate fast and cheaply across both. Native per platform buys you marginal polish you can't afford to pay for yet. Okay. So it's saying managing the two apps at the same time from the get-go is going to be difficult. It says you should rather have this so you should keep it easy. You should keep it simple at the beginning is what it's saying. So use something like React Native or Flutter. Flutter I think is Google's solution. That's the one I was mentioning. I'm not sure. Again, not very much a developer. Yeah, created by Google. Okay. Customer app versus provider app. Build them as two separate apps. Yes. So just like Uber and all of these applications, they have one app for the rider and one app for, or one app for the customer and one for the provider, which makes sense. Two separate apps sharing the same cross-platform stack and backend. This is the part I'd push back on slightly if the plan was one unified app. Customers and providers have almost nothing in common in terms of flow, that's for sure. Customers browse, request, pay, review. Providers manage availability, accept jobs, track earnings. Every successful platform in this category splits them. Yes. Okay. A combined app gets bloated. No, okay, so it assumes I'm gonna have one app. Definitely two apps. Okay. Let's make it clear. Definitely. What else? Okay. Let's do a little more about sketching the actual legal entity setup, checklist for GAFI registration. Yeah, let's do these first. Sketching the legal entity setup checklist for GAFI registration. Okay. I love that. So this is why I said AI makes things so much easier. Look at how many sites it's going through. Okay. I would have preferred it not to be, just as I say, not a markdown artifact, but that will do. this is scoped tightly to incorporation itself, the entity formation steps that flow. So let's do this for today and let's continue tomorrow. I think tomorrow we're gonna focus a lot on the technical side. So I don't know, I'm gonna have a little more time to discuss the technical design before we agree on cross-platform or native per platform. But yeah, so we'll be doing that tomorrow, and then we will try to set up the entire design. Let's continue. The registrations bundled. Okay, the entity formation steps that flow through Gaphy plus the registrations bundled into the same window. Okay, sorry about that. Let's continue. A few things worth flagging before you act on it. The capital figure is genuinely contested in public sources. Okay. Some say no statutory minimum exists for an LLC anymore. Others cite old fixed numbers. Don't lock in a figure without your lawyer confirming the current position. Yeah. So I have to really learn this. The SCMR/Decree 26-2020 question is a real open question, not me being cautious for its own sake. Whether a services marketplace app needs that media regulation license isn't clearly answered in public guidance, one way or another, or the other. Worth a direct question to counsel before launch, since retrofitting a license after going live is messier than getting it upfront. Yes, I don't know what this is, but we're gonna see. Everything else, PDPL, which is the data, compliance, the provider agreement, employment contracts, TOS/fund policy, payment aggregator onboarding is intentionally left out. Those are their own checklists, and bundling them in here would make this one harder to actually use. Yes. So this is just limited to how to set up the entity. Okay, let's go through it then. I had my legal entity setup checklist. So this is if you wanna set this up, and this is not gonna happen soon. So we're gonna be developing this app definitely for at least a few months. I imagine at least 2 or 3. But this comes in handy to know now. A working checklist for incorporating iKhidma as an Egyptian company through Gaphy. This is a planning tool, not legal advice. So several of the rules referenced are here changed in the last 12 months, so validate every step with local Egyptian corporate lawyer or registration agent before filing. Yeah, and it's gonna be expensive stuff, I imagine. So to get a good lawyer that reviews this stuff and tells you exactly what's right and what's wrong and what to be careful of, etc., that's gonna take time. Money. Not time. Time too, but mostly money. Okay. So let's start. Phase 0. Decisions to lock in before you file. Is this clickable? No. Legal form. Limited. So this is the LLC. Recommended over a joint stock company or branch. Faster to register. Simpler governance. No fixed minimum capital requirement and converts to an SE later if you ever need. Okay. So essentially it's saying you better launch as an LLC, limited liability company. Capital figure. Under investment law number 72/2017, an LLC has no fixed statutory minimum. The law just requires capital sufficient for the company's purpose. Sources disagree here. Some older / foreign investor specific guides cite 1,000 up to 2 million depending on context. Confirm the current position with your registration agent. This is the single most cited inconsistency in the public guidance. Yeah, leave it to Egypt to make things complicated and inconsistent. Ownership structure. Investment law number 72/2017 allows 100% foreign ownership for most service. Okay, it assumes that I'm a foreign national. I am not. Confirm nothing about a two-sided service marketplace. Place falls into a restricted category. The main restricted areas are land ownership, certain imports, media, and defense-related industries. Okay. Registered office in address in Cairo. You'll need a lease or title document for this. So I have to have an office. That sucks actually. But it's not a big deal. Business activity description. This is worth getting right the first time. Write the articles of association to explicitly describe the activity as a digital platform / e-commerce / brokerage - intermediary service connecting customers with independent service providers, cleaning, home repair, not generic trading activity. A vague description causes friction later with payment aggregators, banks, and any sector-specific licensing. Okay. Engage a local lawyer and or registration agent. Okay. I should have one of these. Obtain a valid electronic signature for each founder. Required for e-filing on Gafi's portals. Phase 1. Gafi Incorporation. Investor Service Center. Investment Licensing Platform. Reserve the company name. Apply for a non-confusion certificate confirming أي خدمة or your registered legal name isn't identical or confusingly similar to an existing registered name. Create an account on Gafi's investment licensing platform via the Digital Egypt portal. Draft and finalize the memorandum / articles of association. Name, business purpose, activity, okay, capital amount, shareholding split, registered office, and the appointed legal representative. Appoint a legal representative. Must be an Egyptian resident formally authorized to act for the company before government bodies. Assemble required documents. My own camera. The field of view is really bad on this webcam. Okay. Fine. Assemble the required documents. National ID of the Egyptian founders or passport of foreign founders. Auditor's certificate. Power of attorney for the lawyer / agent handling the filing. Proof of the registered office address. Submit the application and documents through the platform. Pay incorporation fees electronically. Track the application via the platform status dashboard. Receive Gafi approval. Typically, turnaround is 3 to 7 business days for a standard LLC once all documents are complete. Can stretch to 6 to 10 weeks. Okay. No, so this is not gonna be a foreign anything. This is just gonna be the only LLC. Receive the bundled incorporation package. Gafi's one-stop shop issues these together. The memorandum of association, commercial registration certificate, سجل تجاري, tax ID, VAT registration, and social insurance registration. Okay, phase 2 and the last. Immediately after incorporation, open a corporate bank account. You need the commercial registration and tax card. Banks commonly require a deposit reflecting the stated capital. Double check the activity listed on your commercial registration actually matches your real business model. Mismatches here are a common source of later friction. Okay. Register with the get onboarded with a bank on a corporate account. Double check if the activity in your registration actually matches what you're doing. Register with the Information Technology and Communications Chamber. Relevant for digital/ICT businesses and may be a gateway to sector-specific support or incentives. Check whether your app needs a Supreme Council for Media Regulation license under Decree number 26/2020. This regime covers websites/apps that provide informational or electronic commercial advertising services or promote business services, products or people online. A services marketplace plausibly falls inside that description. Okay, so I think this is what it was saying about here now. So I'm not sure. Refer to a lawyer. Register for the mandatory e-invoicing system with the Egyptian Tax Authority. Deliberately out of scope. Notes and caveats. Okay, PDPL is out. We already have gone through these. Here, notes and caveats. Timelines are typical, not guaranteed. Core GAFI approval can land in under a week, but full operation readiness, registration, tax card, a working bank account commonly takes 4 to 8 weeks end to end. Yeah, makes sense. So the regulatory ground has shifted a lot in the last year. The PDPL's executive regulations were only finalized in November 2025. A new labor law took effect in September 2025, and the central banks tightened payment licensing rules in mid-2025. Anything written before mid-2025 in public guides should be treated as potentially stale. This is a planning checklist, not a substitute for counsel. Yes, I'm aware. Okay. So this is fine. I guess one thing we can do for today, I'm gonna try to keep these streams 2 hours, maybe 3 hours each. 2 hours for today, day number 1. And since we have 10 minutes left, I'm thinking one more thing we can do is set up the environment. Environment meaning the development environment. Okay, I'll just say Okay. Let's get concrete. It's not a good shift. Okay, let's go concrete. Quick note upfront. Building for iOS, either path, requires a Mac. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Wow. Very interesting. I mean, I used to have a Mac, but I don't anymore. And I imagine Mac OS cannot run on some VM, yeah? Okay, let's see. If you go cross-platform, wow. If you go cross-platform, React Native or Flutter, shared both frameworks. Mac for iOS, Windows, Linux can only build the Android side. Git plus a GitHub/GitLab account. Xcode, free. Mac App Store gives you the iOS simulator, build toolchain, and command line tools. Interesting. Okay. Android Studio. You won't write code in it, but it's how you get the Android SDK emulator and ADB. A JDK bundled with Android Studio, nothing extra to install. Apple Developer Program account, $99 per year, needed to test on a real iPhone and to publish. Google Play Console account, $25 one time. Google now requires a 12-tester close test period for 14 days before you can go live. So budget that into your timeline. Cool. At least one physical test device per OS. Or rely on emulator for now. I was thinking simulators and emulators. I don't really need a device, but maybe that will come up down the line. React Native specific. So you need Node.js plus npm or yarn. I don't know either of these. Watchman, Mac file watcher, install via Homebrew. CocoaPods, iOS dependency manager. Okay. Expo CLI. Easiest on ramp. React Native CLI. VS Code extension. Okay. Wow. Many more tools than I imagined, but that's fine. Flutter specific requires the Flutter SDK. Run Flutter Doctor after install. It tells you exactly what's still missing. VS Code extensions, Flutter and Dart, official. CocoaPods, same as above. Flutter's iOS build uses it too. If you go native per platform, instead, iOS, Swift, Mac plus Xcode as your primary IDE. VS Code becomes a secondary tool at best. Wow. Swift/Swift UI tooling really lives in Xcode. Apple Developer Program account, plus that, which is essentially 99 USD per year. So it's not cheap, but not that expensive. Okay, so this is if you go native per platform. I mean, we're gonna need this anyway, is my understanding. Yes. Android Kotlin. Okay, so building Android uses Kotlin now. I really have very little knowledge about Kotlin. Interesting. Okay, cool. Okay, you're effectively running two separate code bases and tool chains. VS Code mostly shifts to backend/scripts to backend / scripts work rather than the app code itself. Very interesting. Either way, also worth having a backend account set up early. Firebase or Supabase, per our earlier discussion, both have free tiers to start. Figma for sharing UI mocks between design and engineering. Postman or Insomnia optional for testing API endpoints directly. Okay, given you're set on 2 separate apps already, cross-platform per app is almost certainly still the right call here. It gives you native-ish performance for each app while keeping one shared skillset / tool chain across both, rather than needing separate iOS and Android teams for each of the 2 apps. Okay, I'm gonna have to think about it. I honestly thought that native per platform was gonna be easier to maintain in the long run. Based on how it is talking, Claude, I am almost convinced, because I mean, if this is how it's talking, it likely knows that this is the best practice for someone in my situation. I'm not gonna, of course, assume that this is certain. I'll have to check it myself and do my research. But everything is gonna be done on stream for this, and we're coming close to 2 hours here. Let's wrap up what we've done today. We've set up the VM, installed VS Code, even though we may end up not needing it. We have started the discussion with Claude on what is required. I think very critical before we get into technical as well is to come up with a timeline, time plan, let's say, for what to expect and what comes next. We had a few viewers join in and drop out during this stream. No chats have been initiated. I would have loved to see some chat, but that's fine. It's only day 1, so I'm not having any expectations, even for, let's say, day 30. Nonetheless, thank you for joining, to those who joined, and hopefully we can continue tomorrow. Thank you.